The competitive 40K network presents Art of War.
Art of War.
Strategy and tactics. Discussions with the best players on the planet. Now your host, Nick Nanavati.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Art of War 40K podcast. I'm your host, Nick Nanavati, and this week we're joined by a very special guest and Art of War teammate and coach, Alex Macdougall, with his Genestealer Cult. Alex, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well.
That's wonderful. I'm super excited to hear. You were just telling me about how it's like warm and sunny up in the frozen north, and that's new.
Yeah, well, it is new. It's very fresh right now. This is the first couple of days that have been really nice, and everything else has been like, is it going to rain? Is it going to snow? Who knows?
Dude, I'm so happy for you. I'm also so happy to talk about these four-armed friends. You know, I love my Genestealer Cult, and you've been absolutely killing it, going 5-0, not once but twice at two different tournaments, the Cascade Clash and the team tournament that you just went to as well. 10-0 isn't super impressive, especially in all these different environments and circumstances, with final day nonetheless. So we're going to break down your finalists, get to know you a little bit, Alex, and then talk about exactly what makes this army so potent and how it all comes together. This is an army that not many people have much experience with or against, so I think a lot of people are eager to learn. And you, my friend, have been a highly sought-after guest for quite some time, so I'm very excited to get you on the show.
I'm happy to talk about Genestealer Cult all day, every day.
Dude, that's what we're here to do. And then in part 2 of the show, we're going to go through the nitty-gritty good stuff, the actual games, the literal play-by-plays of the highlights between not one but both of the tournaments. So it just doesn't get better than that, folks. You can subscribe, get access to this part 2, along with 285 other episodes and their part 2s by just going on to patreon.com/AOW40K, subscribing for $5 a month. You get access to all that and our Discord server where you can literally tag Alex or myself or any of the other Art of War community members, ask them questions, interact, and participate in TCS leagues. It is truly amazing. Okay, Alex, let's talk about you a little bit. It's been a long, long time since you've been on the show, like way too long. So why don't you, I guess, reintroduce yourself a little bit. Tell us about how you got into Warhammer and, just about yourself competitively.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it has been a hot minute. I got into Warhammer a very long time ago. Just a friend who had played and had mentioned, like, hey, this is kind of like, well, at the time, it was like, this is kind of a new way to game. Because we were already playing video games and stuff. And then he was like, this whole tabletop thing. And I picked it up right away, really enjoyed it. I think I mentioned before that it was like kind of a mutual thing with like StarCraft, which eventually we would all find out like there was a lot more going on between Blizzard and Games Workshop and StarCraft and Warhammer than we even knew at the time.
Right.
So yeah, I started playing that. Got pretty lucky, I think. I had a very healthy community, but it was a community that was at the time quite a bit older than I was. Like I was only like 13 or 14 when I started playing. So in that sense, I think that's what started me wanting to get better is like I would just play all these guys that were like, early 20s and just get rocked like every time. But that was what I asked for. I was like, well, I see what you guys can do in game, and that looks like a lot of fun. And yeah, just kick my butt until I'm good at the game. And that's kind of just what happened, and that's what got me on my path of like becoming better was understanding like I did all of my losing. Like heavy losing very early on in my gaming career.
Right. I mean, that's what happens when you've been playing literally forever. And playing against people who are better than you and just, having that mentality of, kick my butt so I can learn is just one of the best ways to get better at anything, really. So I'm glad to see you adopted that. But still, nonetheless, Alex, it's been quite the journey from like just a young person getting into Warhammer to winning majors and competing in the top 8s of LVOs and having the career success that you have now. How did you work on the skill of Warhammer across that time?
I think early on there wasn't a whole lot of like real formal thought about it. But I think once I got to a point where we'll call it the scene, the Warhammer competitive scene got big enough in my area that I actually felt like I could attend things and like repeatedly. I felt like, oh well, now I have goals to achieve to get better. Because before it was like, how do you measure if you're getting any better? Like I don't know, I play games at the local game store. what does that mean? But if I go to a tournament, well, now I know that I'm playing against people that are very like-minded in that like, oh, everyone's trying to get better, everyone's trying to win the tournament. And then I had like games to kind of break down and analyze, where I would go to a tournament, see what worked, see what didn't. I would play more games at a tournament than I would play anywhere else. And I think that goes for a lot of people getting into tournament play. You hear all the time, you hear like, oh yeah, I play like once every 2 or 3 months. Like, okay, well, what if you suddenly played 5 times in a day? And I think that's what really got me into like really analyzing games and understanding how the game was played. And yeah, you play 5 games in a row and you're like, that didn't work, that did. I understand mechanically like why I thought this was going to be good and it wasn't, and things that I didn't really expect to be good suddenly like, oh, that's how you actually play the game.
Right.
And I think that like hard, fast bunch of reps in a row is like really what lets you understand what you should be doing.
I think that's a great distinction. I don't know that anyone has actually ever articulated that on the show before, but going to the tournament and just, getting, even if you're someone who plays like a game a week, getting instead of a game a week, 5 games over 2 days or 8 games over 3 days, like that kind of flooding of information, just immersion of Warhammer playing really gets your brain thinking about it. And you can see like, all right, I executed my strategy successfully like these times. I didn't these times because of these reasons. And, these units performed well. These units underperformed. This combo didn't work the way I thought it did. This was actually surprisingly good. Those types of takeaways really are what dictates refinement. And I think, most players on their journey is just like refining process of getting better over and over and over again over the course of a long time. So it makes sense that you're just like grinding. The tournaments themselves actually get you that real life experience that really propels you to become a better player. But there's lots of players, Alex, who go to tournaments on the regular and don't see that level of success. What is it about your analysis from those games that really drives you forward?
I think that a lot of times the thing that like obviously you and I we both do the coaching and we get the feedback of like went to an event and went whatever number of wins and whatever number of losses, and you can see that like the pieces are coming into place for the person that you're working with, but there are still things that are missing. And I think the hardest part of anyone going from that like I want to go from 2 wins to 3 wins to 4 wins is a lot of the like kind of intangible stuff and the stuff that doesn't get math. Like if you use the unit that you're like, that's the one that has the most math. Look at how many shots I shoot at my opponent. Like that's a very easy thing for anyone to understand. It's all those little tiny things like movement tricks, not even tricks, just like that preparing for the next turn on the turn you're currently on.
Mm-hmm.
That's like so challenging, I think, for anyone to do. That's the high level chess thing of like they're not looking at the next turn, they're looking at the next 10 turns. And you can do that in Warhammer as well. And the amount of times you'll see like the simplest thing of like, well, this unit was mispositioned. How was it mispositioned? Well, I had it in a spot where it couldn't do containment, and it also couldn't get to the objective to do establish locus, and it also couldn't project its threat. And you're like, why was it on the backside of the building? Why didn't I shove it into the L? Like, it was still safe in that L. And there's all those little things that one instance repeated over the 17 units you have for 5 turns. Like, that's those little things that go from like, I went 3 and 2 to like, I won the event.
Right. And I think that's such a great distinction. It's all those subtleties. It's not the obvious stuff that you can theorize before you get there. It's the small stuff that you only see through the motions of going through it. I think that's awesome, Alex. I love your analysis there. I think you're literally explaining why you're on the show, and I love it. So,
I think with Final Day, we'll get there.
Yeah.
But I think this might be one of the best examples of that as well. The difference between like the right positioning and the wrong positioning, because this list is all about like, oh, like the lictor didn't get into place and now my army just got like turned off. Whoops.
Right. Yeah, we're gonna cover that in detail. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
Before we get there, I want to just like talk about your faction specialization across Tyranids and GSC. Like, in all the time I've known you, you've pretty much only played those 2 factions, right?
Yeah. Basically, come 8th is when I said like, okay, I'm only doing Tyranids and GSC. I had an Eldar army at the time. I took early edition like early 8th edition Ynnari to an event, and I was like, well, this isn't fun. This is so broken. It was a one where, like, I kind of liked it in the sense that it was very complicated and it did ask a lot of me as a player. But if it all went according to plan, your opponent doesn't get to play Warhammer.
Right.
And I was like, this isn't for me. I like the interaction and back and forth. And at that point, I think 8th was also where we got a pretty good like model refresh. And I was just like, nah, I think I'm just gonna play Tyranids and GSC.
Yeah, I love that. So was it a kind of a conscious decision to just pick one faction or these two factions that kind of coexist with each other and specialize in them? How do you think that's impacted your games across editions? Like, do you see the game from that perspective in a limiting way, or do you think that it's you've kind of gone through the trenches and now you're like in this land where you see the Tyranid, you are the Tyranid, and now you just don't have those problems?
I mean, I think with a lot of people, part of it is definitely aesthetic. I like the way the look of the army was. I like the way it played. And I mean, I think for most people, not everyone, some people are nuts. I know Jack just like switch hitters through armies at an incredible rate. But I think for a lot of people, there's something about the faction that you really like and that makes you want to play. Like, I've seen people take a faction that was really good to a tournament, but they're like, man, I really don't enjoy playing this. And then they come out afterwards, and they're like, I was playing the strongest faction, but I didn't do very well. And I'm like, how many reps did you have? I'm like, I don't know, like 4 or 5. I'm like, yeah, you didn't like playing the list, so you didn't play it, you didn't practice, and then you didn't perform well with it. If you're playing what you enjoy and is fun, then the practice doesn't feel as like taxing.
It doesn't feel like work. It feels like fun.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, I'm just playing the army that I like and I enjoy. And even when I'm practicing, I'm like, yeah, I'm playing the thing that I like. So it's not that bad. And then you'll get a bunch more reps in.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not even necessarily like a play style jiving with your play style thing. It's more just like if you're having fun, you're going to do the thing that you're supposed to practice, in this case, more just naturally and get more out of it because you're.
And I will also admit another factor is, like, the real practical one is, like, if you only play 2 factions, it saves your wallet a bit.
Oh, for sure. Don't even get me started.
Yeah, some people are like, yeah, I've got like 5 factions, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a wife, and I want to keep it that way.
All you have to do is start your own Warhammer business, and then it just takes over.
Yeah, yes. You have all the excuses you need.
Right, it's for work, obviously.
Yeah.
So with your specialization in Tyranids, you have this, I don't want to say limited tools, that Tyranids have a lot going on. Genestealer Cult have a lot going on too, but you don't have everything, you're playing with Tyranids and Genestealer Cult as your tools. Do you ever find that when the ebbs and flows of Warhammer hit and your army is just like not that good, can you overcome that with expertise, or are you just kind of sad for a few months?
Recently, it's been pretty good. And when I say recently, I would say, like, basically all of 9th and 10th. Like, again, there are unbalanced things that come into the meta and have to get slowly nerfed or, like, hotfixed. Generally, though, 9th and 10th have been pretty good. I've never felt like, that's it, I just cannot compete at all. There's been times where I've accepted, like, at the lowest points of 9th and 10th, for GSC and Tyranids, where I'm like, I probably can't go in a GT, but I'll go 4-1, and that's fine. Like, that's kind of the state of, like, any event, even as a top player. Like, I don't go even to, like, a local GT being like, well, I'm gonna win. Like, I expect like X and 1, and if I do win, awesome. Mm-hmm. So even when they're a little weaker, I don't know, it hasn't been that big a deal. I've had some times in 8th where I was like, man, I don't know if I can cut it at all with this faction anymore. But it just doesn't last that long anymore. Like, especially now with them doing like quarterlies.
The balance,
like, if your army stinks,
for that, for sure.
Give it 3 or 6 months, and you'll be okay.
So, with that in mind, like, does not every style of Tyranids or Genestealer Cult necessarily is viable? I know, like Crusher Stampede, for example, or this new Warrior Bioform don't seem to be taking much popularity. Although you're driving with Final Day, do you find like there's times where your specific style doesn't like hit, where you can't really play how you want successfully?
I I'm okay with playing most of the different styles. I'm lucky in that I don't really like Crusher Stampede. Like I'm not all monsters.
Yeah.
I like a very balanced force. And I think the way the modern 40k plays, the balanced forces typically usually have game. So I haven't been like punished for what I like. But there's also just a lot of like fun, interesting detachments. I think the detachment thing is like pretty much GW's masterstroke of like this activates these things in your codex, and this activates these things in your codex. Your favorite detachment might not be able to get played, but maybe your second or third favorite detachment is the one. Like if I don't have Final Day, still love Brood Surge. If I don't have Brood Surge, I think I do like Host of Ascension. I'm just like it still feels like Index. So I was like, man, I played a lot of Index. I don't know if I want to play Host right now.
Right.
If I don't have that, I can go play Vanguard Nids. I love Vanguard Nids. If I don't have that, I can go play Assimilation Swarm because they changed out detachment to actually be pretty good now.
Yeah.
And I do kind of like that one. I love running like Pyrovores around and regenerating them and just like being better than Necrons at that. So yeah, I just think there's enough variety in the game that I'm not gonna get burnt that bad. Just currently, Final Day is my favorite, and I do think it's really good.
I love it. So let's stop putting the cart before the horse here, Alex. You've gone 10-0 with an army list of Final Day here. Have you changed your list between these two tournaments, or is it the same thing?
I took this list to what was the last event I did? I don't remember. I had a huge gap from Worlds to now, but no, I didn't change it at all. There was a moment where I thought I wanted to. The data slate came out and they dropped the price of Neurolictors from 90 to 80. And I was like, oh, I do like Neurolictors, and they would be really good in this list. And I literally couldn't find the 20 points because I was going to drop a Lictor and put the Neurolictor in, and I was like, what do I do? And I was like, it's such a tight little setup. Everything goes in so nicely.
Yeah.
That just finding that 20 points didn't make any sense. So I was like, nah, I'll just leave it. I'll leave it as it is.
You can't mess with perfection. So
It's doing pretty good so far.
Tell us what this list is, Alex, top to bottom. Read it off to me.
Okay, we'll start with the GSC side of things. I have an Abominant who's no relics. I've got the Biophagus with the Inhuman integration, which gives him the sustained if there's a Tyranid nearby. Warlord is the Patriarch with the you can't overwatch me, the Enraptured Damnation. Reductus Saboteur, and then we've got 3 units of Handflamer Acolytes that are just pure Handflamers, no banners, no demo charges. And then we've got a unit of 5 Aberrants, Ridge Runner with the Survey Augur, and so he can take away cover and give the AP token anywhere with the Mortar. 2x2 Laser Ridge Runners with the better Ballistic skill. 2 Rock Grinders, both with Heavy Mining Laser, which I know is a less common pick, but I think it only makes sense in Final Day. A 5-man of Hybrid Metamorphs, also with Handflamers, and then a 10 of Pure Strain Genestealers. And then on the Tyranid side of things, it's Death Leaper, 2x10 Gargoyles, 2 Lictors, and a Ravener unit. And just a 3-man Ravener unit.
Wow. Nice. Pretty compact Final Day list. It's got all the normal good stuff in there. Some Alex choices like these 5 Aberrants I'm curious about. But before we get into the specific unit choices and all that, what would you say your specific like strategies of this army? How does it actually play on the table in your head?
It is a lot of mission play and like general board control, and it's a lot of just dragging my opponent towards me to do the hits. Like so many times, my turn 1 is just like Lictor goes on this objective, Lictor goes on this objective. If I have actions to do with them, great. Stage everything up behind them, and then just pass the turn. Like, okay, come and get those Lictors. I know you have to come get them, and then I'm going to start doing damage into you. It's worked to dream even against shooting armies because they have to get within 12. If it's a Death Leaper on there, Death Leaper does not die to like some random unit of stuff. They're going to have to commit something good. So there's a lot of like controlling pace and then counterpunching. It's one of the reasons that I have the 5-man Metamorph unit rather than the 10. I'm not like throwing a big 10-man into people. I'm counterpunching with a 5-man. I found the 10-man metamorph unit was like just about overkill into everything, because the math on that gets like absolutely bizarre when you put all of the buffs on them. And I was like, why am I spending this 220 point unit to go and like just absolutely destroy some like 150 point unit? I should just have a 140 point unit and still kill that 150 point unit easily and not have thrown this huge 10-man away.
Right. So you said it's a more expensive unit. Are you joining characters to your 5 metamorphs?
Yeah, usually it's getting the Biophagus.
Really? So you're not scouting up with that unit or like using it as a cheap little 80 point skirmisher that comes back to life. You're using it as like a hammer.
Sometimes I'm using it to scout forward, but again, that's usually just still staging. A lot of times it's just going in one of the rock grinders.
Nice. Okay, so I get how it's basically really good at secondaries. You have all these lone ops that infiltrate in the Lictors and Death Leaper. You've got Raveners for up and down. You're playing Genestealer Cult, so you have tons of cheap units and lone ops everywhere naturally, and you come back to life with Deep Strike. Secondaries just happen. And then for primary, you've got these lone ops, which basically force your opponent to get within 12 inches to interact with them, which will allow you to then kind of tee off on them with your damage in a counter reaction type of way. What is like all the different units in your army doing? How do you kind of piece it all together?
The 2 units that kind of do like dual purpose is the Aberrants and the Genestealers. They are obviously good damage, especially with a Tyrannid beside them, because flurry rolls to wound against anything. That's one of the reasons that it's kind of nice. Like the Biosurge is great, where you're like, I get +1 wound against vehicles, but like, what if it wasn't vehicles? And the full rerolls to wound against anything is just like such a catch-all for like basically all of the units in the the 3 good combat units in the army, which are the Metamorphs, the Pure Strains, and the Aberrants. But yeah, it turns them so efficient. There's so many units in the game where they're like, this is my tough unit. It has an invulnerable save. It has damage reduction. And the Genestealers are just like, I don't know, take 18 dev wounds. I don't care.
Yeah. Walk me through all these buffs and the layers stacking that Final Day can do. What are you trying to accomplish to get your combos going?
So the general rule of Final Day is that you get +1 to hit if there is a Tyrannid within 6 inches. Because you have gargoyles, that can basically be the case at like any time, at any moment in the game. The speed on the gargoyles is fantastic. I mean, they do it all. They are like stealing objectives, move blocking, getting buffs.
Yeah, the gargoyles
all of those
are just
things.
so crazy.
Yeah, they're so good, and I feel like I've cheated out a 30th, like my 21 to 30 gargoyles, which feels like a little bit of maybe I should have 30, but a lot of times I felt like late game where I was like, I still have these gargoyles. And gargoyles are great, but like all the stuff I want to activate with the gargoyles is dead.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, if Tyrannids are within 6 inches of the opponent, you get +1 to hit. That's shooting and combat. All of your strats kind of tee off on them as well. So if you have a Genestealer Cult unit in combat, you can get reroll 1s to wound. If there is a Tyrannid nearby, you get full rerolls to wound. That makes the Genestealers, the Aberrants, and the Metamorphs all hit very, very hard.
Right. Now we're just doing crazy damage with like dev wounds, rerolling wounds, 4 attacks each. Aberrants just like fixing their strain 7 issue. It's all good stuff.
Yeah, and the Aberrants hitting on 2s also just makes them very reliable.
Right.
A lot of times when you charge in with the Aberrants, and sorry, going back to the previous point, the Genestealers and the Aberrants are obviously good damage dealers. They're also the 2 things that are kind of durable enough to just jump in, grab a bunch of stuff, and continue the like tar pit of just like, hey, we're doing combat on your side of the board, and it's going to take you a little bit to dig your way out. Because the damage is so high out of those 2 units, if you have the buffs, you can pick up a lot of the things that would be dangerous to the Aberrants and still grab all the other stuff. The other stratagem that's kind of nice is if you do get a Tyrannid on the charge and in engagement range, then you also have a full rerolls to charge, +1 to wound, or +1 to charge, which can make those like early game, like that might be a risky charge, very reliable. I don't use it all the time, but if I'm like, okay, that needs to be in combat on your turn, like way on your side of the board, a lot of times I'll like have a lictor ready to go who can jump in and grab as well. Yeah, if you put that in, pop the full rerolls on the aberrants, and you've got a like token of some kind sitting on a vehicle, the Abominant alone regularly will just like pick up a tank by himself. The aberrants will clear whatever chaff they went into, and then you can continue to grab other things. It's just such a versatile little unit. Like strength 7 full rerolls. It's funny. Strength 7 doesn't feel great. Strength 7 full rerolls is like the best thing ever.
Yeah, no, it really is. So you have a lot of 5-mans with a character, and that's pretty uncommon when you're thinking of characters applying like lethal hits to a unit or, you know, rerolling wounds to units. You want that on the 10-mans doing maximum efficiency value here. Why are you running 5 aberrants, 5 metamorphs instead of the 10s? I know you had mentioned overkill, but sometimes you need that extra damage to like kill the Custodians or kill the Wraith Brick. How do you handle those tougher targets when you're just taking 5s?
Sometimes you will not get the kill, but a lot of times you will kill enough that it won't kill you back. All those units are just when it is a 5-man, I'm not really that worried about losing it. If I lose it, I'll just buy it back. Like especially the metamorphs. The metamorphs are hilarious because they're only 2 resurgence points. But it is a lot of like combined arms. Where you're like, well, maybe the aberrants won't kill, but I betcha if I can get any bead on whatever's going on with Ridge Runners, and then the aberrants, and then a lictor, I'll probably get like either the kill or enough that again I just don't care about the swing back.
Right. You're just chipping away with all the damage from across a lot of units, and this is, I guess, is where the flamer guys come in too, the hand flamer acolytes.
Yep, hand flamers are fantastic. As soon as you get an AP token on them, suddenly they're doing way more damage, and because it's such this weird like mixed arms of like there's a bunch of 5-men, there's a bunch of like little stuff all over the place. You still have the gargoyles too, where you're like, well, there's the 2 really scary units. I'll cripple this one, and I'll just partition that one away from me. I'll just deal with that next turn. That's fine. Like the gargoyles were going to come up anyway to give me all of my buffs. So let's continue to use the gargoyles for everything all the time. I'm gonna move block. I'm gonna steal primary. I'm gonna give myself buffs.
Yeah,
like all the things that I was
best
gonna do.
Gargoyles in all of the game here.
Yeah, I was gonna do this with like even if I was just playing Vanguard, I was gonna do the exact same maneuver with gargoyles anyway. But now I get +1 to hit and full rerolls to wound.
Right.
It's gravy.
No, I mean, I love playing it myself. And it sounds like you're basically using like lots of small units across the situation to score points, deny points, win small battles through like combined arms. You know, everyone chips in a little bit of damage and together we cross the finish line. And while doing that, you're taking like a unit of 10 gargoyles and stealing points, giving your buffs, maybe scoring a secondary, and sectioning off the table so that like the hard-hitting counterpunch they're trying to bring in, whatever they want to bring to your side, just isn't able to get there. Kind of like you're paralyzing them while hitting them.
Yeah. It is a lot of like taking a little chunk out, and then with Genestealer Cult, you just aren't really playing a trading game for like the first, turn to maybe turn 3 or so.
Yeah, I mean, with resurgence points, you functionally have 2,400 points. So any type of trade you do, you can lose 2 to 1, and it's okay. 2 units for 1 unit, and as long as like you're making that kind of attrition happen, you're actually winning the game.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it is just for time. Like if turn 1, let's say nothing happens, it was a passive turn, which is not uncommon. Then turn 2, you go in, you do a bunch of damage, you lose one of your units, you buy it back, it shows up. Maybe it's going back into combat right away, or maybe it just came back and did an objective. Like, there's a lot. I keep having to tell opponents when they're like, okay, so do you have anything in reserve? And I'm like, well, not right now.
Yeah, I sure
Give
will.
it a second.
Yeah. How do you find opponents are playing against this army? There's so much going on. It's relatively unknown, not common. I mean, I'm sure your locals have a lot of experience against you, but when you go travel to the GTs and stuff, do people really know what you're up to? Do you find that element of surprise to be an advantage?
Yeah, sometimes it can feel like I definitely have had opponents where defensively they've kind of broken down a bit. Because they're like, there just keeps being stuff showing up, and they're like, I always put a big flip down D20 out. That's what I use for resurgence points.
Yeah.
And like, so that it's visible for them, but sometimes they're just like not paying attention to it because they're like, is there more stuff coming back? And yes, I still have this number of resurgence points.
Yeah.
But you'll see plays of like, they're not keeping track of like, okay, well, this unit can go back up because that is one of the stratagems for Final Day. I've got the Raveners that can go back up. If you kill stuff can come back. And it's all like segmented out in weird times. So it's just a lot of like data for your opponent to keep track of, especially if you are putting pressure on and like grabbing different units, or like, well, their screen has to activate to come and get rid of the gargoyles. You know, like, okay, well, that's an opening now. I can exploit that.
Right.
It's a lot of moving parts for me to keep track of, but yes, it's also a lot of moving parts for my opponent to keep track of.
Absolutely. And I think especially inexperienced, not even experienced players really struggle to kind of keep a track on all the different ways you can use your tools here. Now, one place you and I differ on our Four-Armed Emperor, or our Final Day here, is the Rock Grinders. I don't run Rock Grinders. You have 2 of them. Talk to me about these bad boys. What are they doing for you?
I mean, they do the general transport thing as well, which is nice. Obviously, the army isn't particularly durable. That is one of the reasons I have the Aberrants involved. It was nice to have one unit that was like, okay, that's actually pretty hard to move.
Yeah, takes real effort. It might still be there even after real effort.
Yeah. I also, yes, the Abominant in particular is really funny if you're playing into a full shooting list where you're like, okay, the end of the shooting phase, I'm still holding this objective. And the Rock Grinders are kind of the same thing. What do you have that can specifically take this out and then still have the backup to then finish off the unit that's going to dump out? Which is just a very general, like, that's one of the reasons transports are good. It asks certain odd questions of your opponent. But in Final Day specifically, it is so efficient. Like, the fact that it hits on 4s, okay, well, that problem solved. And then even in combat, where you're like, 8 attacks, 10-2-2 it's pretty good, but he's hitting on 3s. And then he hits on 2s, and you're like, okay, it's so much better now. Like, suddenly you're just doing so much more damage. And his damage is so segmented out in, like, different spots. I've had 2 different occurrences where the Rock Grinder, like, really showed its worth. Just how efficient it could be. He killed so much stuff in one go. It was just him. He picks up, I gotta remember exactly how this happened. It was so funny.
Yeah, because he's got the demo charge, the laser, the stubber, plus his combat. So he's got a lot of different stuff going on. And he's open top. People can shoot out of him. Yeah,
I came through the wall. His last cannon demo charge picked up an orc truck. It lost 2 of the models coming out. He charges in, tank shocks, kills the remaining 3 models, piles into a unit of 5 knobs, and then picks up all 5 knobs.
Oh my god! I mean, knobs are like actually like one of the perfect profiles for him to just go
yes,
into.
It was exactly perfect. I was like, okay, I'm hitting on 2s, 7 hits. I'm wounding on 2s, 6 wounds. I had hit you with the Ridge Runner previously with a stubber, so it's AP 3. Okay, all 5 are dead. Got it. Awesome.
So they're just like this, another durable, complicated piece. I mean, I run a Goliath truck instead, so I do totally see the value of having a transport. Your transport does a little less transport, but does a lot more on the damage side and is a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
Do you
it's almost like look at him almost like a dreadnought. Like, that just happens to be able to have guys put inside.
Right.
Like,
he shoots, he fights, yeah.
Yeah, and he fights good enough. If there's some Tyranid sitting nearby, you're like, okay, this is actually pretty good.
Can he make use of fatal wounds?
I guess he can.
That's hilarious, actually. I love that.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. And I guess it's another one of those things where I also value, like, it's weirdly fast.
Right, it moves 12.
Like, he moves 12. A lot of those vehicles of that style, they were like, you only move 10 now. And he just, like, he keeps up with Genestealers.
Are you frontlining these things and, like, using them early, or are they, like, waiting around till, like, the anti-tank is kind of used, the game is messy, and then they go in?
I think very much it depends on what you're up against. If you're going to be playing a game where your opponent might be putting a little bit of forward pressure on you, you might use them to deflect. If they don't have the best shooting, a lot of times they'll just join the gun line.
Yeah, because they have lasers too. Why not?
Yeah, I've got the lasers on them. Again, I would not put lasers on them normally, put the flamers on, but in Final Day, it makes a bit more sense. A lot of times they are that final piece where you're like, oh, the Ridge Runners just didn't pick it up. You're like, okay, well, here's another 2 last cannon shots. Okay, got it. It's that there's my last 4 damage. It's toast. And yeah, sometimes it is just like jumping. Again, if it gets into combat, it becomes a lot more durable a lot of times if you're grabbing stuff.
And it gives you some more access to like chip damage through tank shock and, just tools in that sense, for sure.
Yeah, it's nice. That was the other example that I had that was really funny. I was playing the GSC mirror, and it charged in, tank shocked, killed it was a Sanctus, kills the Sanctus, then piles into a 5-man metamorph unit that had previously been doing containment, killed that in combat, then it piled into the next Saboteur, or consolidated into the next Saboteur. He's like, well, I can't survive in combat. He goes to back out and dies on the way out.
Oh my god, that's so funny. I always forget he has that rule. How does it work again? Like if you fall back, you take a desperate?
Yeah, you just automatically take a desperate. There's no roll for it. If you have failed your battle shock test, I believe you take it at an even worse rate.
Oh my god. Does that work on anything?
No, monsters and vehicles are excluded. But a lot of times...
bump it into a knight and watch it die.
Yeah, a lot of times... it must take a desperate escape test. When doing so, if the enemy unit is a battle shock, subtract 1 from each of those results.
Right.
So a lot of times it's like it does all that stuff, shoots, everything is more efficient because there's gargoyles or Electro beside him, charges in, tank shocks, actually does a decent amount in combat, and then just grabs like 2 units, and you're like, what are you going to do with him? What's your decision?
That's so true. Like, that's especially if it's like larger units of like dudes that don't kill it and want to fall back so you can like shoot it or whatever, just activate their squads. Like you can really get a lot of free kills this way.
Very funny into Eldar.
I was just thinking about that. I've been playing a lot of Eldar lately, and my elves would not want that.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this, it probably means you play Warhammer 40k. And if you're playing Warhammer, you know you need a lot of dice. Baron of Dice is where we get our dice from. They produce amazing different kinds of dice. We just recently got all kinds of different faction dice shipped to us, which we use on our stream games. But not only do they look really cool, but they're highly customizable. You can get different symbols, corners that are square, corners that are round, different shapes and sizes, different sided dice. It's all the rage. And they're customizable in color and design as well. They are so cool looking. Not only that, but they feel great to roll in your hands. I've never held dice that roll and feel this good. Not only that, but they are scientifically perfectly balanced. There are tons of case studies on people rolling thousands of dice and recording all the results that they get. And sometimes you might get a die that rolls just a few too many ones. We've all had to throw it out before. These dice are not like that. They are perfectly balanced to a T, thousands of rolls, perfect distribution. If you want to take your Warhammer game seriously and make sure the dice are not screwing you over, get some Baron of Dice.
So talk to me about CP management. I know you mentioned using the reroll wounds strat a bunch, but what other strats are you budgeting for, if any?
I usually am holding on to 1 for up and down. Maybe not like turns 1 and 2, but definitely 3, 4, 5 onwards. Again, this is very much a I'm going to score very well. I do not expect to table my opponent. In fact, I might expect to get tabled, but I've had a couple of games. I had a game, I guess we'll talk about it later, but is the classic GSC Grey Knights game where at the end of the game he's got 4 or 5 Dread Knights left. I have 3 units, and then I still won with a 15-5.
Oh my god, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I was like, well, I got nothing left, but I held onto all of your stuff long enough that you just weren't scoring very well. You have 5 Dread Knights, but you have no trash, and that trash died very early. And then at the end of the game, I literally had to, I'll spend 1 CP to make this unit automatically pass this battle shock test. I'll spend 1 to pick this up, and I'll pick the Raveners up. My cards, don't like that one, throw my incoming CP away. Oh, look, it's containment and behind enemy lines. That will be a 10, and I got an 8 on primary. That's 18 points. That's a pretty big win now.
Nice. Absolutely. It sounds like you kind of got a good situation on for everything here. I mean, you have so many reps on this army at this point that I wouldn't expect anything else. What are you not excited to see across the table from you? What do you think is a tough matchup?
Ynnari is cursed. That is a very bad matchup. I think that's kind of a game problem right now. I think if you are playing against a very skilled Ynnari player, it's really rough. But this army is very combo heavy, and that just is constantly activating Ynnari abilities.
Yeah.
There's so many I want to shoot with the gargoyles. yeah, if I kill somebody though, he's gonna get to do something.
Right, and all your damage is in like chip increments, so like they get to trigger reactive moves in the middle of your activations, and
yeah, I want to hit you with the Mortar Ridge Runner so I can get an AP token on it. Oh, you moved, and now my hand flamers aren't in range. Crap.
Right.
There's so many instances of that. That is actually why the Reductus Saboteur is in the list. It's specifically for Eldar.
Right.
Just so many times I'm just like, I put her right behind a wall in front of all my stuff, and I'm like, keep your damn warp spiders away from me.
Yeah, like warp spiders flicker jumping in, take a Warlord 2 on their way in, then she does D3 to them, and all of a sudden they're just not there. Yeah.
A lot of times she will pick that unit up or finish it off, and that's just a fantastic like trade, obviously.
Right.
She's good in general. I actually really do like her. Her standing next to a Lictor is such a cursed combo.
Why is that? I haven't actually thought of that one.
So you come within 9 because you want to get a charge because I'm sitting on an objective on turn
just like her interacting with a lone op, yeah.
Yeah, so she does that to do the damage on the way in. And then, you charged? I'm going to heroic with the Lictor and fight first. Like, it's such a hard thing to answer.
That's so good. I love that.
Yeah, in a way that's like, okay, well, what did you actually put in? Because you literally can't put, like, anything
No cheap stuff will do that, yeah.
Yeah, you have to come get them with something of value. And even then, you'll probably take a bunch of damage on the way in, where you might not be able to kill the Lictor.
One of the problems I encounter with Final Day, Alex, and maybe you can help me with this one, is like, because at least in the stream house, everybody knows what I'm up to. So they're like, I don't want to get into a slow, cagey game with the Final Day with the gargoyles. I'm going to get move blocked and objective contested and, put into a points hole. So they all just start jamming their army at me, like full disrespect mode. Like, you can hit me really hard. I will survive and hit you harder. Because at the end of the day, we do spend a lot of points on mission play, and it's just not like everything is high damage. So how do you handle like someone just blitzing you with an army and, they go first, it obviously helps, and they really just put that pressure on.
It is challenging. I would say that, like a bit of a stat check and like a go first, deploy aggressively and just go for it can be challenging. It definitely is going to be like a turn of delay with the gargoyles, maybe maybe 2, if you have to, just to slow down. But I would be curious as to like which of our lists has a higher damage threshold, because if you don't have the 2 rock grinders, there might be something there where like I just have that little bit of extra punch to go over the top.
Yeah, that honestly might be it. I find like I recently played a game against Necrons where Richard had Star Shatter, and he had 2 big units of Wraiths. This is actually the Worm it just released, and they were healing and reanimating and all that stuff, and he had the Silent King too. And so we like put the Silent King out there, put it on the central objective, like top of turn 2, and was like, you have to deal with this, otherwise the Silent King is going to keep going and take your side. So I like all in the Silent King, and I actually brought him down, and that's like a lot of damage. He's -1 damage, so that is a lot of damage it takes. But then I like didn't have enough left in the tank to kill the Wraiths later on. I tried. I killed 8 of them in 1 turn across both his units, but because I killed them out of both units, not like finishing one to the depletion because of how he set it all up, they both ended up reanimating and engaging me and turning off my damage. But I could totally see that rock grinder tech basically just pushing you over that damage threshold, because you have a little bit less skirmishy stuff than I do. Like I have a few more metamorph 5-mans, and I have a 3rd gargoyle, which maybe those points going into rock grinders would push me over the edge.
Yeah, that's kind of. I mean, we are kind of describing a thing that we both discovered. Where like I would love 30 gargoyles, obviously, but I do think a lot of times I was just like, okay, well the 3rd gargoyle unit is just a gargoyle unit, which is still good, but like he wasn't activating anything anymore. The things were already dead, or the things he was activating was like
having those gargoyles was just there to be datasheet gargoyles. Like I have no more damage to buff.
Yeah, and I think. So I will also admit, Necrons is one of the weird lists that I would say this one struggles with a little bit. It was one of my most struggle games at Cascade. And it's just because, like, I think every army has, we don't really think about it, but every army has, like, a point value baked into it based on whatever it's good at. I mean, that sounds dumb because, like, obviously that's what everything is. But if you were to kind of isolate, like, hey, why is this more points? It's like, oh, because you excel at this. I think one of the things that GSC excels at, and I many times have had people be like, I'm sorry, that does what? Is AP.
Yes. Getting Ridge Runners to AP before ignores cover is hilarious.
Ignores 4. Yeah, it's hilarious. You're like, I have a tank back here. I'm like, be a shame if you had no save at all.
Yeah. I love shooting like a Vindicator in cover, and my opponent's like, this thing is immortal. I'm like, actually, it's gone.
Yeah, that was the first Ridge Runner unit,
Right.
and it's dead. So,
Yeah.
But with Necrons, everything is rocking a 4+ invulnerable save.
Right.
So,
and so many wounds with healing that the chip damage really doesn't add up.
yeah, so, I mean, I remember playing into Necrons also at Cascade. The second, I played into Shatterstar, and I played into Awakened. And at one point, I realized, I'm like, what is this Mortar Ridge Runner doing at the back of my army? It's doing nothing. Like, I can't apply an AP token to anything.
Right.
So I just pulled out of the back line and started driving it around and bonking into stuff.
Honestly, I should have done that against Richard. That might have bought me the time as well to have won that game. Having just one more tank to bump into him, too.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, the AP token's literally doing nothing. I don't need him back there. I'll sit something else back there. It just doesn't matter. Although I think we were also playing the Ritual, so I wasn't even getting points for it. So I was like, no, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But yes, another one that's really funny was, the Rock Grinders getting into combat with Wraith units is their infantry, because they have an infantry character attached.
Oh, yeah. Take that battle shock when you
If they pull back, they die.
Take that desperate.
Which is really funny. But yeah, a lot of times it is like, full stat check can definitely be challenging, and it'll be about a lot of move blocking, a lot of grabbing, and making sure that you definitely are feeding the damage exactly where it needs to go. The Rock Grinders I play, I usually have them full, and I've got 3 options. I've got the Metamorphs, the Pierce Strains, and usually a 5-man of Acolytes. And who is across the table from me and what they have will dictate what's going in, like, every game. If it is full pressure, okay, we're doing Metamorphs and Aberrants. They need to be on the table. They need to be in those trucks right away. I'll get them exactly where they need to be. If it's something that's less pressure, I'll get whichever data sheet is probably going to be more efficient into what's going to be early game. And the other one will be the 5-man light unit. And a lot of times that's just like, I've measured the Rock Grinder to be 9 inches away from center objective, so the 5-man could jump out and do whatever. Or 9 inches away from the table edge, so they can jump out and go and do a contest or a containment right away. But yeah, if it's full pressure, probably both of those combat units are on the board, and I'm going to feed them in pretty quickly.
Right. Awesome. Well, we are definitely getting deep into the matchup theory part of this discussion, which is really for part 2 on our patrons. We're just getting so excited here. So that was an excellent breaking point to continue this conversation over on Patreon. But before we do that, Alex, I have one more question. If you could give a piece of advice to an aspiring competitive Warhammer player looking to get better, what would it be?
I would say that the most important thing you can do is, whether it's local or online, get into that competitive community and go and find your best players and go and talk to them and play them. Like I said, when I was young, I just played it all against the best players. Losing is learning, and yeah, you just gotta like swallow that pride and be willing to lose for a while. Because if you beat everyone you play, you're probably just stagnating and not getting any better. Yeah. So go find that person in your community that's like, yeah, he beats everyone, and go play him a bunch of times.
Yeah. I love that piece of advice. I think it's really great. And obviously that is exactly what you did to get to where you are today, Alex. Crushing GTs, going 10-0 with Final Day, innovating lists, and just being a great beacon of the community. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, well.
Listeners, thank you so much for listening. We can't do this show without you. It's so appreciated. And if you care to help support the show and learn more about Final Day along with all the other wonderful Warhammer things, you can subscribe on Patreon. Patreon.com/AOW40K gets you access to all of our part 2s. That's where Alex and I are going to continue this conversation, and we're going to talk about all of his different matchups and approaches with his Genestealer Cult. If you're interested in that conversation or learning about this nebulous army or just Warhammer in general, I really encourage you to check it out. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and we'll catch you later.
Like what you just listened to? Check out Art of War Down Under and Art of War Unbroken on the competitive 40K network. The Art of War 40K.com.